welcome to Comics Chat. I'm Sarah Cook. I'm a comics writer, and this is a show where I talk with comics creators and fans about their favorite comics and why they love them. If you would like to follow me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah C. Comics. You can also sign up for my newsletter, and the link for that is in the show notes. And if you enjoy this show, like and subscribe. Today's interview is with Jen Giacalone. Jen is a friend of mine. We've been friends for around 10 years now, which is hard to believe. And she is a super talented writer. Um, I'm going to look at my list here because she has multiple amazing novels out, and I want to make sure that I read them all out. She's also got some others in the works, so keep an eye on her for her forthcoming projects. But she is the author of Loud Pipes Save Lives, The Beauty of Things Unseen, and Art of the Chase. She is a poet. She's the creator of the Geek Girls Poetry Project, and she's also the host of the Geek Girls Story Salon, which is a very cool show about storytelling and kind of the art and craft of storytelling. She's had some amazing comics creators on there and writers and storytellers from a range of fields. So definitely check out what Jen is up to. You will not be disappointed. Today, Jen and I talked about Harrow County by Cullen Bunn and Tyler Crook. It's an excellent horror comic if you are into horror comics. And Jen, I think, Jen had some really interesting things to say as a writer, she had the opportunity to talk with both Cullen and Tyler on her show, and she had some really interesting things to say about, some of their thoughts on their process, and Cullen especially, how he kind of created some of the characters and drew in pieces of his own experience into it. And Jen also talks about what it is about this comic and, kind of the Southern Gothic nature of it that really resonated most with her. I really enjoyed chatting with Jen, both as a friend and as a fellow writer and comics fan. It was fun to catch up, and she had some really interesting insights about the art and the writing and just the comic as a whole, and what stuck with her the most. So I hope that you enjoy this interview with Jen Giacalone. Hi, welcome to Comics Chat. I am here with Jen Giacalone. Jen is a writer and an author, host of the Geek Girls Story Salon, which is a great show that has had on some really exciting comics creators and others doing very cool things in the world of geek culture. The creator of the Geek Girls Poetry Project. Yeah, lots of exciting things that you're doing.
Yeah, well, I credit my ADHD for most of it, so.
Understandable. So yeah, is there any particular project that you're kind of most excited about right now?
Well, yeah, there's the novel after the novel that is coming out after the one that's out now. I sort of the book, the book contract that I signed was a 3-book contract, and the first 2 have been sort of these contemporary thriller kind of romantic mystery things. And then I took a big swing and said I really want to, I have this samurai novel, and
Wow.
I love it and I really want to do something with it. So they went, okay, not really what we do, but let us see it. So that's a big one that I'm excited about. And also I'm gearing up for the next season of the podcast, which will be very exciting. We ended
Very
last
cool.
season on a high note, so
Very cool.
yeah.
And just for some background, you and I have been friends for quite a while now. We met in a Facebook group called She-Fi, that I started with another friend, Amy Danzero. And she and I were writing a web series then, and you did some art for that. And we've been friends ever since. And I've seen some of these projects, as you've created them, sort of come to life. And it's been really cool to watch and cool to see how you've been building over the years on what you've done. It's really exciting. I feel like it's grown a lot over the years, and that's been very cool to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, ditto for my end for sure.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, I remember when Lex Kepler was, just the
Yeah.
cartoon that I made for you guys, and we had some fun writing content for her Facebook page.
Yeah, that that was a fun little project that we did. Lex is the main character of that web series, and she's an alien. We had a Facebook page going for a while where people would kind of ask her questions about her impressions of humanity, and we'd give answers in her voice. And that was fun.
I remember one thread we had going for a little while, like a recurring thing where we would like post pictures of her attempting to do human food,
Yeah,
but just really like horrific looking plates of, you know,
just
um,
nonsense.
yeah, just, yeah, like I don't know where we were finding the pictures, but just horrifying things that you would never put together.
That was fun times.
Fun, yeah. But yeah, so it's been a minute. It's been what, like 10 years maybe, or close to
I
it.
know, which is hard to believe.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's been fun. Like we've both been kind of, growing, and I loved watching, I finally got to see the short of my human
Oh
experiment,
yeah.
which, again, coming from having been, drawn the little cartoon, that was super fun for me.
Yeah, it was fun to watch that evolve and to see actual actors bringing it to life, real people,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
real thing on the screen.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And
exciting.
Lana McKissick was so great. She was so funny.
She was good. That was some good casting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Um, yeah, I would like to get around to making shorts, or films of any kind, really. Uh, but there's only one of me, so
yeah, Sam. I'd like to do more of that too, but it's difficult.
indeed.
Um,
Um, I have actually, and I guess I don't know if you want to call this like the official announcement of it, but
oh,
it's not
exciting.
really an announcement. It's more of an idea that has been bothering me long enough that I feel like I need to talk about it. Um, which is that I've been, Warrior Nun. I'm a big fan of that Netflix
Mhm.
series. I actually like it much better than the comic. God bless. No
Mhm.
offense to Ben Dunn, but like, the show really was, you know, it was it was made for me
Yeah.
mainly. um, but
It is a
yeah,
great show.
it is a great show. And the actress Toya Turner, who played Shotgun Mary, she has a pretty active Twitch channel,
Hmm.
and she recently got permission from the powers that be to read um, these scenes from season two, because she left at the
Mhm.
beginning of season two. Like there was a totally different storyline, and they had to kind of scramble.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, she left for, I don't know, personal reasons, but she recently got permission to read what the plot of like scenes from the what this plot of season two was supposed to
Wow.
have been. And so it's her, and Lorena Andrea comes on a lot, to read these scenes with her.
That's super
And it
exciting.
is super exciting. And I promise this is going somewhere. But like I'm watching this, and they're doing it in this very kind of just laid back, having fun way. And of course, my brain said, well, but what if, like, for serious?
Hmm.
What if, you got actors on like a Twitch stream and did it, with music
Wow.
cues and sound effects, and like basically it's like a sort of cross between like a radio play and live theater. And
Wow.
so
That would be amazing.
that's what's cooking in the back of my head now. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
I have my eye on some actors, I have my eye on some stories. It's very much something that still, has a pin in it.
Hmm.
Because again, I'm way overcommitted as usual. Um, but it is something that I'm really interested in doing.
That would be amazing. Um, if you're able to do that, definitely come on and talk about it again. I'll share it everywhere. Yeah, I'm also a big Warrior Nun fan. That would be very, very cool.
Yeah. So
Good
wish me luck.
luck.
Thank you. But
Um,
yeah, so go ahead, sorry.
oh, sorry. One of the other things that you've been doing that I just wanted to mention because I think it's really cool is the Geek Girls Poetry Project. So I went to school for creative writing and my concentration was poetry.
Hmm,
So there was
I
a
did not
time
know
in my
that.
life. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
There was a time when I was writing a lot of poetry. And I still do from time to time. My writing right now is mostly comics, but I will write a poem now and then. Um, so poetry is something that's close to my heart, and fandoms also are close to my heart. So kind of combining the way that you've been doing is such a cool idea. Do you want to talk a little bit about how it started? I know it started with Michelle Hurd and Star Trek Picard.
It did. Yeah, I like you, I'm sort of bringing together these two things that have been major interests for me for a long time. But yeah, I had written this poem from the POV of, her character, Rafi. Um, and I thought, well, what the heck? Let me ask. Because that's been sort of the story of my life, basically. Um, you don't know. Like, it's amazing what you can get if you just ask.
Yeah.
And so I reached out and I shared the poem with her and said, all right, let's see if she digs it, if she wants to do it. And she did. And it was like what I imagine it's like when you get your first hit of crack.
Nice.
Because it was like I wrote these words for this person, for this character, and there they are
Yeah.
coming
Wow.
out of their mouth.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was just insane. And so I started doing a whole bunch of Trek related poems from different, the POVs of different characters. And I mean, I haven't been able to get everybody that I would like yet. But yeah, I've collected I'm slowly collecting them like Funko Pops.
Nice.
I have John Delancey, who's
Wow.
actually doing really well for me on TikTok right now.
Hmm.
Like I just kind of got serious about putting that stuff up on TikTok, and like I put his poem up last night and it's just blowing
Wow.
up. It
I feel
tripped.
like that kind of stuff would do well on TikTok. It's well suited for it.
Yeah, yeah, it is because it's short form and it's like a
Hmm.
familiar face, but it's like something new that you
Yeah.
haven't really seen before. So yeah, that's been doing pretty well. But who have I got? I got John Delancey, I got Doug Jones,
Wow.
a couple people from Disco actually. I got Rachel Ansherl,
Mm.
Commander Non. I got
Mm.
uh Emily Coots Detmer, um, and well, Jerry Ryan read for me, but she didn't want me to like make it public. So I
Oh.
have the video and it is a treasure.
At
But
least you get to watch it yourself.
yeah, yeah. Like I've shared it. I share it privately with people if they
Hmm.
ask. But yeah, I obviously like she said, but please don't do it, don't make it public.
Hmm.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, I've had a few. Who else? Oh, I got Nana Visitor. She was actually one of the best readings I've gotten.
Wow.
Yeah, I
She
got
just seems like such a cool person.
right,
Like she just
right.
would be fun to be friends with in real life.
Yeah, like like if you watch her, do you follow her Instagram?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
because
probably do.
it's just like she comes on and like she's just always sort of giving life advice and
Hmm.
sort of you get it's coming from somebody who's like kind of been through it.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
like instead of letting it wreck her, she's like wanting to help people and
Yeah.
like I just love her energy. Um
Yeah.
But yeah, so she did a beautiful job with a Kira poem. Um,
Wow.
yeah, uh, so I've been kind of making my way uh through the cast. Some people obviously a little harder to get than others.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think I'm gonna have to get a little bit famous if I'm gonna get, like Michelle Yeoh or somebody
Yeah.
on that level. But yeah, I mean it's like it's pretty amazing like how many I've collected just from Trek.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then I'm picking up I've gotten a few Warrior Nun folks, I've gotten a few people from Motherland,
Wow.
Fort Salem, which is like such a great like culty little show.
Yeah.
Um, Resident Alien. Uh,
Wow, nice.
yeah, so I've gotten a pretty decent assortment. Um, oh, and Laura Benanti from Supergirl.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, almost forgot about her. But yeah, so it's been a super fun project, and I actually collected the Trek poetry into a book.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so that's something that, yeah, it's called The Beauty of Things Unseen. So I'm
Oh,
plugging
cool.
that.
I don't think I saw
Um,
that.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Have to
Um,
somehow. I don't know how I
yeah,
would have
yeah,
missed
yeah.
that, but
Yeah, but yeah, no, I did. It's and
that's
it's
awesome.
it's cool because I put the like a QR code in the beginning of the book that you can scan and go to the site with like all the readings. So
Oh, cool.
it's
Very cool.
it can be a multimedia experience
Yeah.
if you dig that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, so I love doing that. That's a great project. I probably will never stop doing that. I mean, I just recently got Claudia Christian from,
Hmm,
Babylon 5.
nice.
Yeah, Ivanova, like, I mean, gosh, like
Yeah.
talk about somebody who deserves some poetry. Like,
Yeah. It's a very cool project and just a really
thank you.
I feel like unique idea.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anybody else doing it, so
No, I haven't either.
but yeah,
Um,
so that's my little fun side project, or one of them.
yeah, I know there are always multiple side projects going on. It's impossible to just do one or two things at a time, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, if you're ready, do you want to hop
Yes,
on into the comic that you wanted to chat about?
absolutely. So yep, I'm talking today about Harrow County,
Yeah.
which
Just
is
a
a great
very exciting
series.
comic.
Awesome. Um, and I actually was, in the podcast, I was actually fortunate enough to chat with both the writer and the artist.
Yeah, which
Um,
is very cool. And I haven't listened to Tyler Crook's show, but I was
mhm,
watching Colin Bunn's this morning.
mhm.
Um, that's awesome that you got them on the show, and that was a really cool, really insightful interview. I feel like just some of the things he said about horror as a genre and how he kind of created some of the characters, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fun thing was like I had sort of dabbled a little bit in that kind of Southern Gothic
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
mythology because, I had written a novel about the blues and, some of the
Hmm.
history that stretched back and like the mythology
Yeah.
that comes along with it. And so, I knew a little bit about Haints and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I saw this. I think, in fact, I might have seen that first issue like while I was working on that book,
Oh,
and I
wow.
and I thought, oh, that's interesting. What is that?
Hmm.
So I picked it up, and I was immediately sold. I love what Cullen does in terms of creating stuff around that mythology that seems like
Yeah.
it should be part of it. Like you feel
Yeah.
like it's something that you should have heard of, but it's not. It's like something new that's his
Yeah.
own thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so,
Yeah, and that was one of the things that he said in your interview with him that I thought was really interesting, that he created this mythology, but one of his goals was to make it feel like real mythology, real stories. And people even came up to him at cons and kind of said, like, this is the story that I knew when I was growing up, people were telling this story. And he'd be like, well, they couldn't have because I created it, but that's how real it feels.
right. Yeah, it's like you swear you're like, you know. Um, but so yeah, I mean, I loved that about it, and
Mhm.
like I even went and he went so much deeper with the mythology of like the Haints and
Yeah.
everything than what I could find when I was like reading up on them. Um, just the and just some of the ideas for the creatures. And it's interesting because like there was some crossover between him and the artist Tyler Cook, who like like sometimes Cullen would give him a very detailed description of what he wants this creature to look like,
Hmm.
and other times not so much. Like he would put
Yeah.
something very vague, you know.
Hmm.
Like the my favorite example is the flaming skeletons.
Yeah. Those are
Uh,
great.
yeah, and that was Cullen saying the script literally just said something like there are ghostly figures in the clearing. And Tyler was like, okay, but how about we make them skeletons and they're on fire?
But yeah, they look so unique and so memorable. Um, and it's really interesting, as someone who writes comics, how much of it really is that kind of experience. Some of it you see so clearly in your own mind, and some of it you just kind of have a vague idea, and then the artist will come up with something that you never would have had imagined. Um, and it's like, yeah, if they had just been ghostly spirits, that would have worked. But these like flaming skeletons are so striking visually.
Hmm.
It's interesting to hear about kind of the evolution of some of these characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was fun because in my chat with Tyler, we were talking about how, because one of the things that I ask most of my guests, because the focus of that pod is storytelling.
Hmm.
So, I had actors, I had authors, comic book, artists, I had people from a lot of different kind of disciplines. And so one of the things that I would like to ask is how do you view your role in the storytelling process?
Hmm.
And what Tyler said was really interesting. He said, well, I'm sort of like the film director
Hmm. Yeah.
because, they come to me with the story and like I decide, okay, how are the shots framed and what do these things
Yeah.
look like?
Hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting because like it makes sense, but it just hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I feel like writing comics is kind of part screenwriting and part directing for that reason. Because you are writing the story.
Hmm.
But then there is that kind of you have to say panel by panel,
Hmm.
what's going to be there, what visually is happening in the story. I feel like it is a little piece of both.
Yeah. Yeah, which was sort of an interesting thing for me because I mean, I've had sort of graphic novel ideas kind of kicking around in the back of my head for years. And like when I spoke to Cullen, he said like, if you ever want to see one of my old scripts,
Hmm.
I'd be happy to share. So I'm like, I'm gonna probably hold you to that.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is like everybody's process is a little different. Like he was talking about how like Alan Moore's scripts are crazy, like just
Hmm.
dense, like paragraphs, like really specific about everything. As an artist, I feel like that would frustrate me, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe not. I don't know.
I feel like, and I'm not an artist, but as a writer, I feel like for me, it's kind of about trying to strike that balance. There are people who write scripts, more kind of Marvel style old scripts that are
Hmm.
very loose. And then there's Alan Moore on the other extreme. And I like to, I don't know, be kind of somewhere in the middle. I feel like just as a writer, I want to be telling more of the story than I would if I were just writing a really loose script.
Hmm.
But then over explaining, I feel like doesn't leave room for I don't know, artists to kind of to interpret in their own way and to kind of add to the story. In comics, it's such a
Hmm.
collaborative medium. If you're just trying to tell the artist exactly what to do, it's like, well, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of losing some of that collaboration. And I mean,
Yeah,
Alan Moore, obviously his comics are classics, so they
right.
worked out fine for him, but
Right. It's like, okay,
in
you're
general.
it's yeah, I mean, okay, fine, he's a genius, so
Yeah.
whatever. You know, like I remember reading about Quentin Tarantino and,
Mhm.
because he's a writer director, he doesn't have to really adhere much to the
Yeah.
conventions of, script writing. So as
Hmm.
a young screenwriter trying to break through, reading his scripts will not help you in any way.
Yeah, that's
Um,
funny.
but most of the time, the sort of conventional wisdom, whether it's film scripts and I'm discovering comic scripts also, this is the same thing. It's the script should be an invitation to collaborate,
I like that. Yeah, I agree.
you know. Now Tyler Crook, the interesting thing about him is he's got this other series where he's both writing and doing the art, The
Mm-hmm.
Lonesome Hunters. And um and so that's almost like the writer director thing,
Yeah. Hmm.
where he can just sort of do things however he wants to do them because he's the whole show.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And I've thought about that. Like, what would it be like if I were an artist and I could just draw my own comics? And I think in some ways it would be nice. I could just, directly translate what's in my head onto the page.
Hmm.
Um, but then in other ways, I do like that kind of collaborative process too. Like, I'm working on a short for an anthology,
Hmm.
and the artist I'm working with created this character, and I ended up not using the character
Mm.
in the short. But he was a demon, kind of like a nerdy little demon with big glasses and
Oh, that's
um
fun.
yeah. And the design that he came up for him was just so good that like now I feel like I have to create something around this character. And
See,
I
that's
just wouldn't
that's
have.
fun,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm. With Harrow County,
Yes.
um I am about halfway through the series right now.
Hmm.
One of the things that I really like about it is just the characters are so compelling. Bernice and Emmy and Caleb, the skinless boy. They're just they're such well-written characters. Was that kind of one of the things that drew you into?
Yes. Yes. I loved well, I mean, again, like anytime you have female lead, you get my
Hmm.
attention. It has to
Yeah,
be
same.
good for me to
Yeah.
keep my attention,
Hmm.
um but yeah, I loved the skinless boy. Just what an idea, right?
Yeah. It's
Um,
mhm.
just like, man, like Cullen Bunn's mind
I
is
know.
just and even, the little goblin Priscilla,
Mm-hmm.
she's just like this sort of sassy little
It's the way that I don't know, some of the how does he think of some of these things? Like Caleb, um, he's a skinless boy, but
Mhm.
then his skin kind of has its own consciousness and can kind of talk like he goes out into the world, but his skin kind of sees what he's seeing and reports back to Emmy.
It's
And that's such a
almost,
unique idea.
yeah, it is. Well, it's almost like the muscle and bone part of him is like a
Hmm.
drone that he sends out,
Yeah. Hmm.
you know? And but he can see and feel and experience everything that part of him is experiencing. And I don't remember all the elements that came together to produce that character, but he did talk about how there were just a few like separate memories or something that kind of came together in his mind in a particular way. Like he told some crazy story about like when he was a kid, like when he was 10 or something. There was like some dude that was like just like some homeless dude or something that was just living under his house, and
Wow.
like he just saw the guy kind of crawl out from underneath the and and uh and that was like a thing that just stuck in his head, and like
Yeah.
so that was sort
Hmm.
of the part of the basic image in his head of like this sort of
Like the way that he
crawling.
moves and
Yeah.
hmm.
And I don't remember what the other pieces were, but the way it happens a lot of times when those really sort of unique ideas, it's like the collision of different things that don't necessarily follow one from the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and just kind of drawing from things that you've actually experienced and then interpreting them into something that can be in a story.
Hmm. Yeah, well, it gives it a level of truth, even if
Yeah.
it's, even if you're handling something as fantastical as, the stuff that happens in these stories.
Yeah, I think it's true. It's that idea that the specific is universal. And you take something that you've actually experienced from your own life and have real feelings about and real memories of and put it into your art. Kind of the realness of it, even though it is specific to your experience, the realness of it resonates.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, but also after the main arc of Harrow County, there's this other series, Death's
Yeah,
Choir.
I'm gonna
And
have to get into that one too.
yeah, and that's Bernice grown up.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
Bernice.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And so she's, grown up Bernice is like this like black lesbian hedge witch.
Nice.
And I'm like, okay, yeah,
Everything about that
just
is
shut up and take
awesome.
my money. It's,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's one, and like, he works in like the Fae,
Hmm.
which isn't necessarily part of Southern mythology,
Yeah.
you know. But they're in there, and the way he treats them, they sort of get fit into the rest of the, you know, like it feels natural.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things just about the series as a whole, that there are all of these different characters and different mythologies. You've got the Haints and you've got witches and you've got goblins and all these things, but they come together and it feels like one kind of cohesive mythology.
Yeah. Well, there's this real again, it's like sort of this interesting thing. It's like this very fantastical world that they're building that has these elements of just really gritty kind of human experience
Hmm.
as part of them. And so like when the mystical stuff comes in, it like you accept the mystical stuff as part of the human experience too.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think that's part of why I love kind of like supernatural horror or like contemporary fantasy stuff because um it feels like it could exist in our world. When it's done really well, it doesn't feel like, and I love other stuff that's like where there's really good world building and it's like a completely separate kind of, fantasy world or whatever it is, or
Sure.
sci-fi world. Um, that feels separate from our reality, but it's a really well done world building.
Hmm.
I enjoy that kind of stuff too, but there is something about kind of supernatural stuff that's grounded in our actual reality where it starts to feel like it could live in our real world that we're living in here.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's definitely a part of why the genre resonates with me so much.
Hmm. Yeah, because it could, you feel like,
Yeah. Hmm.
um like so, there was, I can't remember the name of the series, but someone told me there was a book series with like fays that like lived in a trailer park.
Nice.
and and I now can't remember it, and I'm really mad about it.
It's or something like Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, and I have
Mm,
the sequel to it, Hellbent, on my dresser
mhm,
that I've been meaning to get to forever. But I really got that same kind of feeling with her too. Like she's living this like college life, but there's all of this like magic and creepiness going on underneath it, but it's so grounded in her like day-to-day college life that I'm like, wow, that could be real. But it's just kind of in the shadows of her existence. It's not out in the open, so you kind of feel like maybe this is happening in the real world and I'm just not seeing it because it's hidden. Um, and something about that I feel like is powerful.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think even the most practically minded among us kind of still wants a little wonder, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's like the part of us that still like pretends we believe in Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, all right, I know, but wouldn't it be fun,
Maybe.
right? Yeah. Yeah, and I think I don't know. I mean, it's just this human impulse. I think it kind of comes from the same place, right?
Yeah. To just kind of, yeah, there's a part of you that hopes that there's something a little bit magical going on.
Yeah. So,
Um,
so I have a question for you. What comic writers
okay.
would you like to talk to?
Ah, I think James Tynion would be at the top of my list. Um, I
Yeah,
think,
I'm on his mailing list.
yeah, same. Tiny Onion.
Yep.
Um, and I feel like everything that he writes is just so good. And he's got a million projects going on right now, and I don't know how he does it, but uh, yeah, I think Neil Gaiman, like we were saying, would be up there. Um, I've been really getting into Lore Olympus lately, and I think it would be fun to talk to Rachel Smith because it's a really different kind of comic than the ones that I think usually get kind of the most excited about, but I really love it. And I think it's really interesting how she's kind of translated it from a web comic into these like beautiful trades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she'd be a fun one. Who else?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking over at my shelf now with all my comics. Craig Thompson, Blankets was another one of those ones that really I think initially kind of drew me into comics because it's so poetic and it
Mm-hmm.
almost feels like as someone who wrote a lot of poetry, it feels the same way that poetry does to me because he just has this way of kind of zooming in on really quiet moments. Like there's this one scene that sticks in my mind where the main character is just kind of lying in the snow in the woods with his girlfriend next to them and they're just talking, but it's so like poignant. Um, so he'd be one. Um, I mean, Gail Simone, Kelly Sue DeConnick. What about you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, I'd like to talk to Rachel too. So, and Neil, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think I would like to talk to Maria Lovett.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I was just talking about Faithless on another one of the earlier episodes of this
mhm,
show.
mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I'd like
like
to talk to her too.
yeah, that would be a cool one. Like I just finished Luna not too long ago.
Hmm.
And that was pretty cool. Um, I
Yeah, I've been meaning ever since I got into Faithless, I've been meaning to start looking at Luna too.
Yeah, it's nice. I
Hmm.
mean, it's you'll breeze through it. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, it's like the art is really, gorgeous and trippy, but like the story, like it goes down pretty smooth. So,
Nice.
like that's
She does
definitely
trippy art well.
she does. Yeah. And yeah, I would just love to ask her about that and
Hmm.
just kind of what her inspirations are and you know.
Yeah. Harrow County too, I think one of the things that I like about it is like we were saying, it kind of builds out. And I
Hmm.
feel like it is like the first arc, you kind of get this introduction to Emmy and who she is. And with each kind of like four-ish issue little arc, um, the world kind of builds out more.
Hmm.
And it's like he's kind of zooming back a little bit and back a little bit um, with each new arc.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that's really well done. Um, and then with each new arc too, it's kind of you still have this. She's dealing with these different things, and you're learning about new parts of the world. But kind of the theme of Emmy kind of figuring out who she is and like is she Emmy or is she Hester and is she good or is she bad? Um, Kind of weaves throughout all of it, and I just think it's really interesting the way that he builds on these episodes and builds on that kind of main theme.
Hmm.
Each with each arc, it's there's a little bit added to that.
Yeah. And with each one, it just gets a little more bonkers, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's like, I mean, whatever. I don't want a spoiler for people who haven't read it, but yeah, for each one, it just kind of, as the mythos builds out, you're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and in that first arc, it's kind of and it seems like the magical part of Harrow County is kind of contained. Like you think that Emmy is kind of the only witch around, and that Hester was kind of the only witch around in her time. And you have the Haints, but they seem pretty like contained to the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then you get to the next arc and the next arc, and you find out no, there are other witches out there, and the Haints are kind of all over the place, and they're not the only supernatural creatures out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just grows
Mm-hmm.
and grows and snowballs.
Yeah.
And he does that well.
Yes. Well, what I love too, and I think he and I talked about this in the interview, is, Malachi. So they build him out too in a way, because when you first encounter him, you just see those eyes in the dark,
Mhm.
and then